Good day. This is James Spencer. I am an artist developer and I am also an acting, voiceover, and musical theater coach located in Long Beach, California. And I often get asked by actors that work with me or actors in musical theater specialists in general, how do you develop a great dialect? And there are, of course, hundreds of dialects that actors should know, but one of the most important dialects that is always asked for is what we call the High British or English dialect. And, of course, within England and the UK, there are regional dialects. But what I'm going to be teaching today is a basic British dialect that is used, like, for example, for BBC America, can be used for period plays and pieces, as well as just a general sounding British accent. So this is going to be the first in my series on accents and dialects, and I hope this is helpful to you. What I'm going to do is talk a little bit, and then I will break down some specific rules you can follow to help you connect to doing a correct English accent. Okay, so one of the very first things that we should talk about when doing a British accent is where sounds are placed in the mouth and the shape of the mouth compared to in America and dialects in America. What we are going to find in general is that the British accent is much more slower in its delivery than in America. The other thing is the shape of the face. So, for example, I'm going to kind of talk like most people talk in California, which is sort of back in the throat, not moving the mouth much. So, like in California, people kind of talk back here, dude. This is kind of how people talk. And in England, the shapes of the mouth are much more open, and air is placed more forward in the mouth behind the front teeth. Right here. Okay, so if I yawn more when I talk, I will start to sound British. And of course, there's specific rules we're going to talk about, but that's going to be very important. What's super useful is for any singers that have studied IPA, International Phonetic Alphabet. So the vowel sounds and shapes for singing are very much connected to the High English British accent. Okay, so we'll be going through all those, and I'll give you some words and things you can work on. Okay, so let's move on to the first rules, which are going to be rules for the letter R. Okay, great. So before we start, my suggestion would be to have a notebook that you could take some notes in and write down some example words and then practice saying them. And then, of course, you can practice saying them after me. So one of the very first rules that will just help you sound British, and it's something you need to remember, is that when you get a script or a musical theater selection, every time you see the letter R at the end of a word, you don't want to say it. So the rule, and I'm going to do it American first, never ever say an ending R, okay? Doesn't sound British at all. But as soon as I yawn a little bit more and leave the R's off, I will start to sound British. So let's try again. Never ever say an ending R. Okay, so did you notice that the R sound sort of, when you have ER, becomes So like, for example, or like a schwa, very unaccented sound. So never, ever. The month of October. My name is James Spencer. Okay, but not Spencer. Hear the difference? Okay, so let's practice a few words together. October. Your turn. December. Winter. November. Ever. Forever. Okay, so there is the first rule. Never ever say an ending ah. Also, what is always very applicable when you're starting to learn a dialect is to watch movies or plays or musicals that have a British dialect. For example, I recommend watching shows on, from BBC America or Masterpiece Theater. For example, Downton Abbey, things like that are very good. And then here's an example. Like a lot of kids, for example, love Harry Potter. I'm a Potter fan too. So notice how that would be said. My name is Harry Potter. Over there is Hermione Granger from Gryffindor. And I left off all those R's. Okay? So that's your first rule. Thanks. The second letter R rule you want to remember when doing a British accent is R between two vowels is also silent. So here's some examples. The way we were, not were. Over there. Notice on there, I left off the R. There. You try that. Over there. I'm here, not here with the R. Hear the difference? Okay, so let's do a few more. Were, there, here, bear. Okay, so those are some words you can practice as well. What's a great thing to do, what I do with beginning actors that are working on an English dialect, is to actually take your script, and what you can do is take a pencil and cross out very gently or slash the ending R's as well as the R's in between words with vowels. Okay, again, let's try a few more. Review. Over there, I am here. Okay, very good. And then I'm going to now talk about the last R rule. And the last letter R rule you want to remember is that R before a consonant is silent. But what is different is it creates a puckered sound with the mouth yawning. So for example, let's take the word, well there's one right there, R before a consonant. The word burn. So if I say the R's, that's going to sound American. Word burn. But if I do this, would burn, it sounds British. So, for example, notice the drop of my jaw. Turn, burn, learn. Okay. London is burning. Oh, it is my turn. Okay, there's some examples. So let's review now all three R rules. Never ever say an ending R. R between two vowels, like in the word there, here, R's are left off, and R before a consonant, burn, turn, learn. Okay, so those are all your R rules. What you should do is go through your scripts, look for all the R's, and then you can, like I said, slash them to leave off. R in the front of a word, beginning a word, is pronounced. So, for example, red rose are examples, okay? Other than that, all your other R's are left out, okay? Okay, so let's work now a little bit with the vowels in English. One change that you will see is the majority of the time, there are exceptions, but the majority of the time when you have an a sound in English, like ask, the British pronounce ah, ask. So here's some examples of that. Ask, fast, mask, after, laugh, half. Okay, so here is a couple of phrases. After half the task on the raft, with a mask, on the morning after. Okay, so there's a whole example of using all those ahs. Let me do that again. after half the task, on the raft, wearing a mask, on the morning after. Here's another one. Sometimes contractions like can't becomes can't. Okay, so I can't laugh in the bath. Okay, so there's the ah sounds again. So what you want to work on is most times when you hear ah, it becomes ah. Again, look at the shape of my mouth, egg shape. Ah, ask, laugh, task. Okay, there are exceptions though. For example, in English, we would say and, just the way we do it, hand. But notice we would say command. Okay, so there is a change. So it's a little tricky to know exactly when to do at and when to do ah, but about 90% of the time it's the ah sound for all those ahs that we talked about. So mosque, cost, ask, fast, after, laugh. Okay, there's some examples. So those are great words to practice. And when they come up in sentences, if you noticed in the previous section, the little lowercase a to e is the phonetic symbol for a, and a lowercase a is the symbol for ah. Or sometimes in America, you'll see AH for ah sound. So what you can do is go through your scripts, and when you see a word like ask, say, oop, let me put a little AH above that, ask, to remind you to say it that way. And the more you do, the more you'll just remember to do it that way. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so this is a more subtle little thing that a lot of beginning actors miss, but is essential to really getting, again, a British sound. Words in English that end in the letter Y, very, merry, scary. In America, we tend to make that Y an E, scary, merry. What they do in England is they make it an I as in it. So, scary, Jimmy, I. Hear it? Merry, I. Merry Christmas. Very lovely. Not very lovely. Hear the difference? So, America, very lovely, very lovely. British. Hear the difference? So what you want to do too is every time you see a word that ends in a Y, make it an I as an it sound, okay? So in phonetics, the capital Roman numeral 1 or capital I is the symbol for it, as in my name, Jim. Okay, so my name, for example, Jimmy, Jimmy. Over there is Jimmy Spencer. Okay? Not over there, see with the R's, remember we leave off the R's, over there is Jimmy Spencer, would be Americanized. You hear the difference? Okay, so those are things you can work on. Watching that you leave, you turn all the Y's into an I sound, okay? Those are great things to mark in your score as well or in your script. Okay, so the next section is really what I call the icing on the cake that will make you sound very British, is understanding perfect diphthongs. So a diphthong are two vowels that are placed together to create another vowel sound. And what happens is in America and in other regions of the world that speak English, the diphthongs are not always true traditional British diphthongs. So here's an example. Let's look at the sound I, like your eye, okay? Now, in America, we sometimes hear people where, if they're from different places, maybe go I-E, I. Especially in the South, like in my I, whatever. You'll hear these sort of different inflections. In England, the way to do the I sound is actually ah, A-H, ah, to I, as in it. Now watch, my jaw doesn't move. Ah, I. Night, bright, sight. Okay, but not night, bright, sight. Okay, hear the slight difference? It's very subtle, and you have to really, study it. The trick is, again, in English, the jaw doesn't move a lot. It's very relaxed and open. So watch again, correct British. Night, bright, sight, eye. Okay, so that's an example of one. So, I. Okay, so did you notice in my mouth, my tongue does the movement? I. The tongue just kind of flips up a little bit in the back. What Californians and Americans do is pull the tongue back and maybe go, I. You see the tongue kind of either pull back or not perfectly correct vowel shape. The next one is A, the long A sound, like in day. Now, it sounds, this is the one that really confuses Americans, is we would say day, or sometimes you'll hear like in the South, day, A-E, right? It's like an A and an E. In England, it is as in bed, and I as in it. And it sounds like A, but it's really to I. Day. We're having a lovely holiday. Notice again, I just use lovely because remember the ending Y is I. So lovely holiday. It's a lovely day in the month of May. Now watch the difference. In the month of May. That's more American. Hear the difference? Okay. Very subtle, and that takes a little practice, is understanding your diphthongs. Again, if you've ever studied diction for singers, all these diphthongs are what you do in singing. So it makes it super easy if you're a singer, but a lot of times actors have not studied IPA, and they have a little trouble getting those exact shapes, okay? So we've done I, A. Here's another one. Ow. Like, how now brown, okay, like, how now brown cow, right? So here's what we're really doing. In British, it's to ow. How now brown cow. If you've ever seen My Fair Lady, that's actually in, with Liza Doolittle, they're trying to teach her to get rid of the Cockney accent and to go to a British accent. She's going, ha, nah. That's how, kind of Cockney, and getting those shapes right. How now, brown cow. Okay, so go watch, if you've never seen it, My Fair Lady. That's a great place to see exactly what I'm talking about with these vowel sounds, okay? So that's another one. Here's one I hear a lot of Americans do wrong, is oi. Okay, now let me talk a little bit about English O. There are two O shapes in English. There is closed O, and that's only used in one word, and the word is obey. You see how closed my lips were? That's called closed O. Obey. But there's also an open O that's more of an egg shape, like in O, boat, coat, O. Now, if I add that to a diphthong, like in oi, boy, it's actually, Americans go O-E, boy. Okay, like, over there's that's my toy, toy-e, boy-e. They do that, boy, toy. Especially in New York, boy, I'm a goyle, boy. That's kind of a New York accent. You'll hear, so that, but in England, it's O to I, oi. That is my boy. Over there, she is playing with his toy. Okay, so those are some shapes that need a little work to get the perfect British, okay? So here's another one that comes to mind. I think we've done most of the diphthongs. Here's one like A-I-R. And we know that we're leaving the R off, so it actually becomes hair. there, okay, dropping the jaw and getting those, okay? So that's pretty much the basics of what you need to know to start to get a British accent. Those are the basic rules, okay? Another dead giveaway, if you know a true British accent, is the Brits are much more exact with their letter T. In America, sometimes double T in the middle of a word is soft or sounds almost like a D. Like in the South, they would say little, little, instead of little, little. So we want to make sure that with a British accent, we are very exacting in pronouncing our T's. So here's an example. Little better, butter. So here's a sentence. A little better butter to make me fatter. Okay? So, but not a little better butter. See, little better butter. In America, we're a little bit lazy and make the L's, make the double T's into a D sound. Okay, so you got to really watch that if you're American, that when you're speaking British, to really circle those double T's and to get the T's very clean. A little better butter will make me fatter. Here's another one with a bunch of T's. My daughter ought to have caught her. That's okay. My daughter ought to have caught her, but not my daughter. See, sometimes in America we do that. Daughter ought to have caught her. Okay. Here's another example of a couple of words that are different. In America we say tomato. In England, tomato. But also where some Americans get it wrong is they make that last T almost a D. Tomato. They just kind of throw it away. But it's tomato. Tomato. I like tomatoes on my salad. Okay? So really working with your T's and practicing those, circling them again in your scripts and in your pieces that you're working on will really help you to master it. Once you've done it for a little bit, you will always do it and you'll just master it. Okay, so getting, it's just about practicing it. So it's about taking these sounds, and I like to personally, the way I'm teaching it is to isolate sounds. Not try a whole sentence right away, but say, okay, I'm just going to work on T's today. Little better, butter, and work on those. Or maybe, work on leaving off your R's. October, maker, December, and practicing that for a while. Then start to put them into a sentence, okay? And you'll see that you're just speaking fluidly with a good, beautiful British accent, okay? Okay, another difference that a lot of Americans or Australians sometimes miss in a British accent is when you have a word, for example, with a double E in it, like in B-E-E-N. In America, we say, how have you been? Or I've been to America. I-H, sound, been. In England, it's E, been. Have you been to London? Have you been to Germany? Have you been to America? So here's some examples. Instead of been, been. Spleen, E, okay? Seen. So really making sure you get the E sound instead of I, okay? It's subtle, but it's a few where everybody will be doing a pretty good English accent, and then all of a sudden they'll say been, and they go, up, American, bean, okay? And that sounds a lot to Americans specifically. They go, wow, that sounds weird. We would never say, we're so used to seeing, I've been to Disneyland. They would say, oh, I was on holiday and I've been to Disneyland. Okay, it's very different, okay? And that's an example of something you want to practice as well. So turning, again, when you see like EE in a word, making the I into an E, okay, in words, and then practicing that, okay? Good, good, good. Okay, now I want to talk about some specific words and colloquialisms that are used specifically in British that are not really used much in America or in Australia. The first word is quite. They use that quite a bit. Okay, so for example, you might say to someone, how was the movie? Oh, it was quite good. It's quite, I quite very much enjoyed it. They use quite often. Okay, so that's something you want to get into your vocabulary, or you will see written into scripts that word used quite a bit. Okay, you like again, let's see. I was watching Downton Abbey and I quite enjoyed it. Okay, so in addition to quite, instead of saying friends or pals, in England they tend to say mate. I went out with my mates. Hey mate, how you doing today? Okay, I'd be a little bit kind of slang. Okay, and so using mate more than that, you almost never hear them say, I went out with my friends. They say, again, I went to the theater with my mates. Okay. Another thing is in America, when we are angry, we use the word pissed. I'm pissed off. And in England, they tend to say bloody. But bloody, remember ending wise it. Oh, bloody hell. Oh, it was bloody awful. Or sometimes they use it with a positive. That was bloody brilliant. Okay, and that's the next word, is brilliant. When something is really great, we'll say, oh, that was awesome. That's what we say in California a lot. Like, dude, that was awesome. In England, they say, that was brilliant. That was bloody brilliant. Okay, so those are a few words that if you add them into what you already know and you've been practicing, will also just help you get the colloquialism of English. Here's another one that is a different word. We say, pass me the remote control, if we're going to change our television or something. And they usually say in England, could you pass me the clicker? Clicker. Okay, so remember with click, we're not going to say clicker with an R. Remember ending ah, never ever say an ending ah. The clicker. Could you pass me the clicker? I'd like to change the channel. So that's another one that is used quite a bit. Here is where it gets very strange because it actually is incorrect English technically, but the British tend to do it so much, specifically middle class British, that it's just that will make you sound more English. And this is something like, I was sat. Instead of I was sitting is what we would normally say. Like, so in America, we would say, I was sitting on the porch. But in England, they would say, I was sat on the porch. I was sat on the porch. I was sat on the couch when the bell rang. I was sat. And this could also be plural. Instead of we were sitting, we were sat. We were sat in our seats at the theater when a cell phone went off. Bloody hell. Okay, so there we go. So if using some colloquialisms, okay. Another one is, instead of I was standing in line at the grocery store, they would say, I was stood at the grocery store. Grocery store. I was stood at the grocery store. Okay, there's another example. And we were, instead of we were standing, we were stood. Okay. We were stood in line for the Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland when the fireworks began. It was so brilliant. I quite enjoyed it.
Okay, so there's using a whole bunch of those. Okay, so you can have kind of fun with those, just kind of playing with these sounds and these colloquialisms. Of course, there's hundreds of more I can go over, and I don't want to, spend hours, but I just want to give you the basics that if you really follow the rules that I've just talked about and add them into your script and practice these, you will really start to have a very good British accent. Of course, what is also applicable is watching British television, watching British plays, musicals, reading novels that are written by British authors. Um, and that will also help you. Of course, there are slight differences I didn't go over between, let's say, a basic high English nowadays that you would hear that's just sort of kind of what we do when we think of British, compared to, for example, a Victorian English might be slightly more affected on certain words, or, of course, Shakespeare. Now, notice how we say that in America. We say Shakespeare with an R. Shakespeare. I will be reciting Shakespeare. Spear, leaving off the R. Okay, so those are things you can practice. Okay, I really hope this was useful to you, and I hope you enjoy this. I look forward to comments or any questions, and I will be making more videos on other dialects later. A little bit about me again. I am a vocal coach and an acting coach. I do dialects, I do voiceover, and I do teach online as well as at my studio here in Long Beach, California. So if you're interested, I'm going to also leave my website and so forth, so you can get in contact with me if you're interested in lessons or so forth. I also am an artist developer, so I specifically work in the U.S. with actors and voiceover artists to work into the industry, like perfecting your portfolios, connecting with agents, all the things you would need, vocal reels, audio reels, and so forth. Okay, thank you so much for spending time with me, and I look forward to doing more of these in the future, and I hope this is useful to you. Okay, so this is a little bit of a tricky one, but in English we also have triphthongs. Those are three vowels that are put together. So for example, the word hour, the way we would say it in America, H-O-U-R, is actually three vowels together. Ah, hour. Okay? And again, one way to remember those is just leaving off your R's, okay? But what tends to happen I'm using this as a little bit more of an affected British, if you're super posh, if you're super aristocratic, they sometimes leave off the end or barely touch the ERs at the end. So for example, here's a sentence. I'm going to do it in America first. David Gower had a power shower for an hour. Okay, now there's a lot of R's. Now, what they would do is leave off all those R's, but then what they also do is take the triphthong and make it into a diphthong, leaving off the final schwa or the So it becomes David Gower had a power shower for an hour. Okay, so ga had a power shower. Okay, so David Gower had a power shower for an hour. Okay, and it kind of just all flows together. And you'll sometimes hear that. Now, that is sort of, used sometimes, not always. So for just a basic, British accent, you could go Gawa had a power shower. You could do that, but sometimes it's just thrown away. Gawa, power shower. Okay. Specifically in the posher areas. So that's one you can also practice. Okay, so also there are some differences in certain words we use in America compared to what you would say in England with a British accent. And just knowing a few of these words when they come up can also help you if you're speaking a dialect to add into, your ad libs if you're doing, a British character or so forth. So in America, for example, we use the word trash. Okay, so if we're going to pick up, the garbage, we say, pick up the trash, throw it away, or whatever. Sometimes we will also say, if something is awful, we'll go, that's trash. That's. But in English, they use the word rubbish. Oh, that's rubbish. Oh, I need to take out the rubbish. Okay, so trash versus rubbish. Here's another one. In America, we go on vacation. I'm going on vacation to Florida. But in England, you go on a holiday. I'm going on a holiday to the south of France. Okay? So, vacation, holiday. Here's another one that is used quite a bit. In America, we own or get an apartment. I live in an apartment. But in England, you live in a flat. Okay? So also in America, we say, my roommate. They would say my flatmate. Okay? Some other things. First floor and second floor. In America, the first floor is called the first floor. But in England, if you live on the first floor, you live on the ground floor. And notice how I said that I left off the R, ground floor. I live on the ground floor, and I have a 2-bedroom flat. Okay, there's an example. In America, we go to the mall, we take the elevator to get somewhere. In England, you might take the lift. I'm going to Harvey Nichols, and I'll take the lift to the next floor. Okay, so there's an example. In America, we watch TV. We say, I'm going to go watch TV, or I'm going to watch television. In England, they say, I'm going to watch the tele. And notice again, we said that the ending Y is I. So watch that, tele. I'm going to watch the tele. Oh, are you being served is on the tele. Okay? We walk in America on the sidewalk. I'm going outside to walk on the sidewalk. In England, I am walking on the pavement. So they use pavement instead of instead of sidewalk, okay? Here's another one. In New York, for example, I'm going to take the subway to go somewhere. And in England, they will say usually, I am going to the underground, or I'm going to take the tube instead of the subway. Here's one that can be really interesting. This happened to me when I first went to London. Is the differences in America we wear pants. Like I'm going to put on my pants. In England they say trousers. I will put on my trousers. Because when you say pants in England, it means your underwear. So like if I said I'm going out of my pants, sometimes in England they would go, wait, you're going to go walk around in your underwear outside? No, why would you do that? And so sometimes you'll hear again in England they say pants for men's underwear, and ladies' underwear is knickers. Okay, this does remind me of one of my favorite shows, Are You Being Served? You'll see, for example, Mrs. Slocum, one of my favorite characters, saying, oh, don't get your knickers in a knot. Knickers, okay? That don't get your underpants in a knot, okay? And we would say in America, don't get your panties in a knot, which is kind of interesting. So there's slightly those little subtleties can make a difference in just kind of having fun with your British accent. Another thing that's kind of interesting, we'll say something sucks if we don't like it. Oh, that album, that sucks. That movie sucks. Sometimes in Britain, they say pants. I know it sounds a little weird, but it's kind of like, that album pants. Or, that movie pants. Okay, which also kind of means it sucks. Okay, or we talked about in England, they use bloody. That was bloody awful. Okay, so those are just some more fun little colloquialisms that you could add on with everything we worked on to start really sounding British. Have fun with this. Languages should be fun, and practicing your dialect should be something you look forward to. And if you just do a little bit every day, you're going to get better and better. What I like to do is isolate, take some notes on basic rules, that like I went over, then, go through, get a script, mark it up like we talk about, like, cross out your R's and your ending Y's, and, practice them, and then practice your fluidity. Watch a lot of British television and movies. That's always applicable. And not just watch my videos. There's hundreds of really excellent dialect videos on places like YouTube, and it's just about you're gonna pick up different things from different people. There is so much, of course, to mastering a dialect that one person's not going to get everything. So the basic idea is to take the basic concepts and work on those, and then you'll get the subtleties of the language and the inflections. One thing I always say is to remember is that the wealthier the character, or the more aristocratic the character, usually the slower they talk because they have more leisure time. So if I am the King of England, or I am, a lord, I tend to talk very slow. I am, the Earl. I am Sir James Ross Spencer of Althorp, and I talk very slow. But if I'm middle class, we might speak a little faster. And as we go into lower class, you're going to start hearing the lazy guttural English, which we'll talk about in the next episode on Cockney, which is sort of the super low class English that's all done in the back of the throat. It's very ugly. It's not this very refined, very yawning, very articulate sound. It's the opposite of that. Okay, and I'm not putting down Cockney because obviously you want to use it. You might need it someday. But it's about that understanding the basic speed and placement of every dialect is extremely helpful. Okay, thank you again for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next videos. Be sure to like my channel if you like this, and you can leave notes, or you can always get to my website and send me private through email. Okay, thanks again. Take care.